welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be sharing with you my newborn breastfeeding tips. Throughout the day I'll be sharing with you some of my best tips, some of the things that have made this breastfeeding journey so much more successful, so much easier than my first time. If you're brand new here, I currently have a 2.5-year-old toddler, and I just had my second son. He is 5 weeks old, and we have been breastfeeding since day one. It has been such an amazing, wonderful experience this go around, and that is night and day with how the first time was. The first time there were so many bumps and hiccups in the road, and I did not enjoy breastfeeding, but I think I give a lot of credit to these tips for helping me have a more successful breastfeeding journey so far. I'm just going to start this video by stating that I am not an OB, I'm not a lactation consultant, so if you have any concerns or serious questions, definitely consult your newborn's pediatrician or lactation consultant. And that's my very first tip. My very first tip is that there are these magical professionals out there called lactation consultants, I have hair in my mouth, excuse me, that can help you with your breastfeeding needs. There are so many questions that come up around breastfeeding, so many concerns, that you can do all the research in the world, but when you're actually in it and you are getting to know your newborn and your newborn's getting to know you, can be so many things that pop up. So definitely my biggest tip and my biggest advice is to find a lactation consultant. Some lactation consultants work in hospitals, so you might get to see one before you leave the hospital with your newborn. My first time I did with Hugo. The second time with Theodore I didn't. Granted, we are living through a pandemic, so I don't know what the rules and regulations were or if they changed in my hospital, but I would definitely look up a lactation consultant in your area. If you don't know where to start, I would either Google lactation consultant and where you live, or call your OB and see if they have a lactation consultant they can refer you to. You could even possibly contact your child's pediatrician and see if they have a lactation consultant that they recommend. Another tip is to breastfeed as soon as possible after you give birth. So skin to skin helps encourage breastfeeding. So if you can do skin to skin right after your baby is born, I would highly recommend it. And then try to get your baby on your boob ASAP. Let's talk about colostrum. So colostrum is the brownish, yellowish, almost sometimes clear looking liquid that comes in before your transition to breast milk, and colostrum is like liquid gold for your little one, and it's all they need. I think a lot of the times people see how little colostrum they produce and think like, oh my gosh, there's no way that my newborn can be sustained on this for a few days, but they absolutely can. So my biggest tip for getting your colostrum out and getting it to your baby is to try hand expressing. So hand expressing, let me show you here. With your hand, you're going to start kneading your boob and helping to get the colostrum out. So helping to express the colostrum out. And then that should also help your newborn be enticed to latch onto your boob. Another huge tip is to know your nipples. It sounds ridiculous, but I never paid much mind to my nipples before. Know your nipples, because it's possible that you could have flat or inverted nipples, and that can make breastfeeding really difficult. Also, if your nipples are really big, that can make breastfeeding difficult. It won't make breastfeeding impossible, but if you have your OB look at your nipples beforehand, or a lactation consultant look at your nipples beforehand, or the first few hours that you're in the hospital, you can feel a little more prepared going into breastfeeding, especially those first few days, those first few weeks. I get a lot of questions about nipple shields. Nipple shields are what I use to help us breastfeed, being that my nipples are inverted. So let me show you my nipple shield. This is a Magella 16mm nipple shield. They're these really thin silicone accessory pieces, and what it does is you invert the nipple here, it suctions onto your nipple, and then it'll help and encourage your nipple to pop out of your areola, thus making it easier for your newborn to latch and to breastfeed. A big question I often get is, how do you know the size to buy, like what size nipple shield to buy? And there's no, I can't really answer that for you because I don't see your nipples. They either schedule a meeting with a lactation consultant beforehand so that they can take a look, or ask your OB. Your OB might be able to take a peek for you and give you like a rough estimation of which size you should purchase. If you don't want to do either of those two things, nipple shields are on the less expensive side. So if you wanted to buy one small, one medium, or one medium, one large, and like play around with the sizing once your baby is here, then you could absolutely do that as well. And I will link the nipple shield that I bought right off Amazon in the description box. So let's talk about latch, because that's obviously a huge piece of the breastfeeding puzzle. If you don't have the correct latch, breastfeeding could be really painful. Outside of the first few days that you're breastfeeding, your nipples are going to be sore. They might even be a little bit cracked. There might even be a little bit of bleeding. I would highly recommend getting some lanolin cream. You can buy it right off Amazon. Again, I'll link it down below. That will help just keep your nipples moisturized. Something that I did with my first son was just went topless in the hospital the entire few days that I was there, and that really helped keep my boobs as dry as possible. Breastfeeding shouldn't hurt, so if it's hurting, it's possible that your baby isn't latched correctly, and a lactation consultant is going to be the person that you should go to help you with your latch. Obviously, I can't see your latch from here, nor am I qualified to give any sort of latch consultation or latch information. So my biggest thing is just make sure you're consulting with a professional. They'll be able to help you with your latch if breastfeeding is really, really painful, or if you think that your baby's not getting enough milk, or if you feel like they're just not on correctly, if it doesn't feel like your baby is having a pleasant experience and you're not having a pleasant experience. Let's also talk about lip ties and tongue ties, because that could definitely affect latch. So a lip tie and a tongue tie is when there's a little piece of extra skin on either the underside of their tongue, I believe, or the underside of their lip. Consult with either their pediatrician, or if a lactation consultant is able to detect an either tongue tie or lip tie, they can then probably let you know of a pediatric dentist in your area, or your pediatrician can recommend you to a pediatric dentist who would be qualified to perform the procedure to help fix or reverse the lip tie or the tongue tie. Here's a tip: when you are breastfeeding, if you feel the other boob get super engorged and you feel like it's gonna explode, hand express the other boob as your child is feeding on the other one. Does that make sense? So Theodore is feeding off of my right side right now, and my left side is feeling super engorged. So I would use the hand that I'm currently holding my camera up with and just self-express a little bit of milk out so that it doesn't feel quite as uncomfortable. A huge concern or worry when it comes to breastfeeding is not knowing exactly how much breast milk you're getting and the worry that they're not getting enough. My biggest tip here is to just trust your body and to trust your newborn. Trust that your newborn knows how often they need to eat, and that will help with regulation. So your body, especially in the first few weeks that your little one is here, is still getting used to how much breast milk to produce and how much your newborn needs. So there's this bit of a dance that happens between your newborn and your body. It's gonna seem like your newborn is feeding all the time, and that's because they are. They're going to be feeding every 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, depending. That also helps give cues to your body on how much breast milk to produce. So especially in the beginning, again, I just wouldn't stress about it. I wouldn't stress about your body not giving your baby enough milk, because there's a back and forth that's going to happen between your baby and your body. Now, that being said, if you don't feel like your breasts are getting engorged, and then you don't feel like you're getting that letdown, if your baby is continuing to give you hunger cues, they don't ever seem full, then I would definitely consult with your pediatrician, because your body may not be producing breast milk for your baby, but your baby will tell you that, right? Like, your baby will give you those hunger cues. So some newborn hunger cues to keep an eye on are pecking. So if your newborn looks like they're pecking at you, or if they put their hands in their mouth, or if they're like slapping their lips together, all those things could mean that they're hungry. Crying is usually a late stage hunger cue, so try to look out for those other hunger cues before they get to the point where they're screaming. If you're still really worried about your supply, then what you could do is either exclusively breast pump, so you know exactly how much milk you're giving your baby, or you could pump to increase your supply in between feedings. So after you're done breastfeeding your newborn, grab your pump out, pump. Pumping after your baby feeds will help increase your supply. You could also start taking a breastfeeding supplement, like I think it's called fennel fenugreek. I'll link it down below. There are over-the-counter supplements that you could take to help increase your milk supply. Also be sure when your newborn is latched and breastfeeding that you're hearing active swallowing. If you hear swallowing after you've felt that letdown and you know milk is being pulled out, then you know that they're actually consuming milk. So the last way to detect whether your newborn is getting enough milk or not is simply by checking how many dirty diapers, counting how many dirty diapers they have. Something that your pediatrician is probably going to ask you, and what's really nice is when you have a newborn, you're going to your child's pediatrician a lot. So I think they recommend about at least 4 to 5 dirty diapers a day. It's a really nice way of knowing if your newborn is consuming enough. During your letdown, your baby starts choking, or you feel like every time you go to breastfeed your newborn, they're like overcome with all the milk coming out and it's getting all over their face, or again, they're choking. It means that there's just too much milk coming out for them to handle. So again, express some milk with your hand out first and then latch them on. Okay, let's talk about breast pads. So when it comes to breast pads, there are two kinds. There are disposable breast pads and there are reusable breast pads. I prefer the reusable breast pads. I find it easy enough to slip these into my bra, and then it's so nice that I can just wash them and then reuse them. I also find that with the reusable pads, they don't scrunch up at the bottom of your bra. The disposable ones have an adhesive on the back side so that they all stick inside your bra, but I found that over time they slowly started to make their way, like crumple up in a ball at the bottom of my bra. So my reusable pads don't do that. I have two kinds. I have these bigger bamboo pads as well as these thicker, smaller pads from Marleys Monsters. I'll say that with these are very, very thin, these bamboo pads. These Marleys Monsters pads are a lot thicker. However, just know that if you have a really strong letdown, or if your baby like goes a long stretch without breastfeeding and you start to have a letdown and milk starts coming out, that I haven't yet found a breast pad that can do major absorption. So last night he had a 6-hour stretch of sleep, which was incredible, but the first time that he's slept that long, and I woke up and my shirt and my bra were all wet. And the breast pads, they do a really good job, but there's only so much they can do. That being said, I would 10 out of 10 recommend these Marleys Monsters breast pads. I love them. I think they're fantastic. They come 3 pairs in a pack, so you get 6 individual breast pads. Another breastfeeding product a lot of people swear by is the Haka breast pump. It's a silicone manual breast pump accessory that suctions on to the boob that you're not breastfeeding from and catches the letdown. So let's say your baby is breastfeeding on the right side, you would put this on the left side. It suctions onto your boob, and then it would catch the letdown or whatever milk comes out while you're breastfeeding on the opposite boob. So a lot of people swear by this. I haven't used it enough to find it incredibly useful, but if you have a really strong letdown and you're collecting milk, then this could be a really good option. If your newborn is breastfeeding, your newborn's pediatrician may recommend that you give them vitamin D drops. I've been giving these to Theodore. These are the Mommy's Bliss vitamin D drops. You can give these to your baby either just directly on your nipple, just squeeze out 1 drop, directly in their mouth, I think. It says mixed with formula. Yep, it can be dropped daily onto mother's nipple or pacifier, mixed with formula, breast milk, juice, or other foods. So yeah, definitely talk to your doctor about vitamin D drops if you are exclusively breastfeeding. My very last tip is to make sure that you continue taking your prenatal vitamins, drink a lot of water, and eat nutritious food. All of that sounds like super obvious and ridiculous, I'm sure, but it's so important that you keep your body healthy, because the things that you are putting in your body will then get given to your baby, and you want to make sure that you are still taking all of those amazing, wonderful vitamins and keeping all those nutrients in your system. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye guys.